Right, so this is the Devblog readout for the Nemesis 8 Schools Out Verfügungstruppenkommando 42 in brief. So, yeah, basically Nemesis 8 comes with two divisions. Last week it was the other one was a 71Y, and this is kind of like an update on that. If you want to see the full thing, because I'm just going to read this out, basically show you the units. If you want to see the full thing, there's an hour-long video here that will link in the description. Right, it's divided into every single tab. It's got a lot in it. This is basically an update to that video. An update to that, because this is based on another devblog. Anyway, I'll stop labouring the point. Hello, Commanders. We return with our second Nemesis 8 Schools Out preview, with today's devblog giving a special focus on NATO's West German I'm not saying it again. Let's see what has changed or has been added to this unpronounceable instructor-heavy battle group. Nemesis 8 Schools Out was our most recent community-voted Nemesis to go into Eugen production as part of the Nemesis Second Chance vote. So yeah, 42 and 71, from what I remember, went up against 1st Cavalry, 1st US Cavalry, and the 1st Soviet Div. And then everybody voted for 1st US Cavalry. The Soviet Div's neither here nor there. And so this lost, and then it came back again. And frankly, its competition wasn't. It was BRSC, the British one, which I wanted, but basically that was just a bad version of HDR London. And the other ones were just so inconsequential, I can't even remember them. It was some Dutch one, which was just a bad version of CLKA. Anyway, so here you go. You've got the new and improved. People say they're getting kind of mad at the fact that these look like they're AI generated. I don't know what the bottom of an Uzi looks like. I don't really care, frankly. It's probably AI enhanced, right? I wouldn't say it's entirely AI generated, because these are the models from the game, presumably. So we got some new tanks, and yeah, let's just keep reading. You can find all the juicy details and full unit and category breakdowns of both divisions in this devblog, and this devblog is from this video is from this devblog, right? So that one in brief. So 42 is NATO's West German battle group built up around Kampftruppenschule 2, the armoured training academy at Münster, bringing together Bundeswehr territorial troops from North Ag Command. This mixed tank formation can count on an excellent cadre of recon, tanks, and helicopter training units. The Verfungstruppenkommando 42 will feature new NATO units such as the Heimatjäger Panzerfaust squads, Fachlehrergruppe instructors. So that's something teacher group. Spelled translate correct there. Specialist teacher group. Okay. The Leopard 2A4B, which is in the game. DKW Munger Jeeps. Interesting. So that's like similar to the Iltis, I suppose. Okay, there's a military police one. Rad Aufklärer. Rad Aufklärs 91-2. A few experimental Leopard 2A4Ds. The Leopard 1A6. The Lehrer Leopard 1A3A1 instructor tanks, anti-air Bo 105 Bush 1s. I'll get into what all these are once I've finished reading out this very long sentence. SIGINT capable UH-1D Hess helos, with air support being provided by the F4T, F4E, and the upgraded Alpha Jet A in several new loadouts. So let's break this down. This is a very long sentence with lots of German words. So, Heimatjäger is in the game, but they have a Carl Gustav. So it's 9 dudes locked at Vet 0. Although actually, can't you up Vet it in... No, you can't. Okay. So it's going to be this, but it's going to have a Panzerfaust 44, which is this one. So it's got 14 pen instead of 16. The accuracy is higher, but the range is less, so the accuracy is about the same. Also, the accuracy if you're reservist, you have minus 5% accuracy, right? So the Carl Gustav should be 55% at 750. So it's probably about the same as a Panzerfaust 44 because the accuracy is based off the max range, etc., etc. So Heimatjäger Panzerfaust 44 is probably going to be 35 points for the same unit with a Panzerfaust 44. Question is, will it actually be 35 points? Because these things start to, at the lower end, there's a lot of compression, and they might just say, well, it's similar, so if they both appear in the same division, the Carl Gustav one and the Panzerfaust 44 one, chances are the Panzerfaust 44 one will be cheaper, something like that, or there'll only be one card of the Carl Gustav one. That's something they usually do. Because, yeah, there are some cases where one is just a straight upgrade. So the Czech one is probably the best example of that. I'm trying to find my Czech divisions. They're at the bottom here. So you've got Moto Strelci, and then Moto Strelci RPG-7, and you'll notice they cost the same. And the RPG-7 one is obviously better, but it's not better enough to cost more, because they only go up in 5-point increments. Basically, they should just times everything by 2 again, times the income by 2, times all the units by 2, and then you can have more granularity. The instructors, so just to recap, if you don't know what an instructor is, it buffs up units of the same type, as in, like, this will buff up other infantry by 1 vet, so it's really good in TKS, which is the one I'm showing you, and it will remove the reservist trait, but it will not buff up, for example, recon infantry, right? A CV buffs up everything, but doesn't remove the reservist trait from what I remember, but it can buff up anything around it. So the Logi CV can buff up your AA or your Arty, for example. Instructors is just an infantry unit, and it doesn't even extend to recon infantry. So what you do in this div is you bring the Heimatjäger Carl Gustav and the Green Berets, and you buy 2 Carl Gustavs for every Green Beret, and then this just becomes an incredible squad, because now it's at 1 vet, it's not reservist, it's 9 dudes for 40 points. With AT, whereas, you know, this is 9 dudes for 50 points with a worse AT. Do you see the point? The one on the left here doesn't have AT, that's why it's cheaper. So the Leopard 2A4B is in the game twice, I think. Oh no, okay. Is it this? The C? So this is the Dutch version, right? And then the Germans have the C, I suppose, and the Leopard 2A3. So the C has more armor. You might be like, what's the significance? The one on the right dies to a 30 AP ATGM, which is every AT plane in the game bar 2. They might have added a third one at some point. But most ATGMs launched from planes are 30 AP. They're less popular than they used to be. The new meta is about spamming cluster bombers, because they changed something a while back to make some of the cluster bombers drop from quite far away. So something like the Tornado IDS cluster, also a West German unit, is completely broken. So I don't mind it dropping from so far away if it's going to cost a bit more, but, like, I mean, this thing is very, very, very good for the price. Very good. And the other one is the Su-24M cluster, which for 215 points is just incredible. It's mainly because of their survivability. You can move out the way of these, whereas the AT plane missile, once it fires, even if you smoke, it's in God's hands whether or not the RNG roll hits. So this Munger thing shows up later. I don't really understand what this is. I hope it shows up later. The 2A4D, I think, has like more side armor or something. It is covered in that other massive video. So the 2A4C and the 2A3 and so on, the issue with them is that they've all got 6 side armor. So the Conkers one-shots them on the side armor, which is a big problem when you've got a fast tank that you're trying to drive around and do stuff with. So I think the D has more side armor, and it might have more pen on this gun, because if you compare it to the... Oh, that's interesting. But like the HA is 22, so maybe it's 22 as well, I don't know. I actually don't know. It's in that other video. The Leopard 1A6, so that shows up later. The Leopard 1A3A1 instructor tank, so it's like the instructor infantry but just for tanks. The anti-airbow 105 Bush 1. I'm gonna call it the Bush from now on. So basically, there's a class of AA Helo in the game, which is, I used to knock it, but it turns out they're actually pretty good at the start of the game. So there's these, and then there's the American one, and the Polish one, and these two. Obviously, the one on the right is better despite costing the same because it's got more range. And the idea is you buy all three at the start. You have them somewhat spread out, and you just have them like you can send them forwards at the start to like cover a helicopter opener, or you put like an ATGM. Well, yeah, you're covering a helicopter opener, right? And you put an ATGM healer with them, and it snipes the ground unit so your guys can get in, that sort of thing. And then you pull them back, and you have them just behind your front lines. The enemy bomber comes in, and your three Gazelle Celtics all shoot their stingers at the enemy bomber, and you should kill it. And it means that you don't need to buy like 2 Crow Towers or something. I can't remember if I thanked the generous channel joiners, generously joining the channel. So this is the big thank for the generous channel joiners, generously joining the channel. They get their names on the screen, they get the videos early, get members exclusive videos, and they get a Steam key for my game Hearse Hero, which is on Steam. Hearse Hero on Steam. So it ends up being quite useful, but if you lose, once you lose the first one, they just become like way less useful because they die in one hit and they tend to miss a lot. But yeah, the one on the right is clearly better. The one on the left is probably, I assume they're going to get stingers, not minstrels on them, so it'll probably have the stats of the one on the left. And the bow itself is in the game, so it'll be, yes, it's a stat clone. It's got higher autonomy, but the speed is the same. The HP is the same. The ECM is the same. So it'll be the one on the right, but it'll look like, so it'll be these stats, but it'll look like this. I guess, I assume. It might be different. I don't know. SIGINT capable UH1D Hess helos. So this SIGINT kind of sucks. I was playing a 10v10 earlier today, and jammers can be useful, but that's a different thing. Basically, the way SIGINT works is that it draws a big circle around the unit, and it will light up a certain colour when... somebody flanked me once on a map, and I was like, oh, the SIGINT is showing me. And it'll pop up a certain colour if there's somebody in that radius, so you can tell if there's a flank, and there's 2 circles, and you can get multiple units and you can triangulate their position. Generally, it's kind of a waste of time, but in some very niche cases, it can be useful. If it is also an optics helo, then that might be useful, right? If it's something more than just a SIGINT. So, or if it's a jammer helo. So it tends to be, so like this is SIGINT and jammer and high ECM. So this is a useful unit, and it's not because of the SIGINT, it's because of the jammer, which means the enemy doesn't get corrected shot with their artillery around this unit, which is nice to have, but also not like hugely important. The main reason people bring this is because it's got 40% ECM and very good optics, and 8 HP, so it can survive a hit from any manpad. The manpad's probably going to miss half the time, roughly, whatever. And you have it in front of your Apache, on all 3 of these divs, actually. Actually, this first ACAV doesn't have the Apache, does it? You have it in front of your Sea Knight, and this thing soaks up damage and spots people, and the Apache kills, right? So that's, and it's like, oh, and it's also SIGINT, which might be useful in those very edge cases where it's SIGINT. This, I don't know, to me that kind of looks like the Lynx Chancellor, which is not SIGINT or anything, but it has a big eyeball strap to it. It's got exceptional optics, so it's just very useful. I'm not. If this is literally just SIGINT without optics, probably not going to be very useful. Without optics, without ECM. If it's got ECM, it can be useful for what we were describing. F4Ts, F4Es, all this other stuff. Yeah, I mean, they tend to have 30% ECM. Some of them have 20%. The E's have 20% ECM. I don't know what the T is. It certainly comes after F in the alphabet. The Alpha Jet is it's like 3 per card, which is a shame. But yeah, they carry some bombs, and they tend to be a one-way trip. The idea is you buy all three of them at once, which is hard to do when it's... But yeah, you can do it in this case because it's, 240 out of 260. So the minute passes, you buy all three, you send all three out. You have one maybe behind the other two, and then the idea is the AA shoots the front one, and then you bomb the AA with the other ones. But it's like this one in particular has a very, very bad payload and should probably be cheaper. Because look, this one for the same price has big bombs. And the gun is neither here nor there, really. I suppose it can be useful at trying to snipe a helo, but it probably just run out of ammo. So the Verfolgungstruppenkommando 42 changes. So these are changes since this video. So that's the purpose of this devblog. The following updates will find their way into 42. The Munger. So this is what we've been reading about. One of the main additions is the introduction of the DKW Munger. They say letters differently in German. Representing the older equipment available to the Heimatsschutz brigades, Brigade, and other reservists and territorial regiments. This iconic West German Jeep's acronym Munger refers closely to Mungo, German for mongoose. I mean, I know what a mongoose is, right? I was just thinking, do they have them in Germany? I guess they don't have tigers in England, and we have a name for them. Designed in the mid-1950s in the wake of the Bundeswehr's inception, this vehicle was one of the first, perhaps even the very first, post-World War II German-made vehicles. The DKW Munger was popular throughout all the branches of the West German Armed Forces, and was also introduced into the Dutch Army and other nations in smaller quantities. The Iltis replaced this Jeep in the late 1970s. Okay, so basically, here's your Iltis, and it goes at 90, and it's got 4 HP, so we can assume that it's going to go at less than 90. Otherwise, what's the point in the replacement? In Warno, the DKW Munger will be a new model series similar to the venerable American M151, compared to the more modern Humvee, French M204 and P4, Dutch M38 and Land Rover, and can be deployed in various roles. So it's saying it's not like these. Is that the M151 is slower? That's the Mutt, right? So it's like 65 off-road. The issue with these things is that because that isn't like a big deal, it tends not to actually have a price decrease associated with it. So there's a slightly different example. So the Cracker is the same price. Oh, I suppose the one on the right is National Guard. Yeah. Actually, yeah, maybe the National Guard one should be slightly cheaper. Wouldn't it be 5 points cheaper if it's National Guard? All of these recoilless rifle, non-recon recoilless rifle Jeeps in the info tab, they're all useless and nobody brings them, so they could do with a buff, to be honest. Maybe a buff to availability. Because the issue with them is that all my decks got nuked by a 40 strike team build. Did I ever tell you that? I'm trying to think of one where, second UK, right? Here's the Berlin Command. Berlin Command. We're here to discuss these things, right? So here's Berlin Command, right? It's NATO. Come 1v1. And here's the Rover Wombat, and nobody brings it. It is pretty funny how it's just going straight through that. Yeah, presumably it's supposed to go through this, but whatever. Yeah, it dies in one hit. Even like these, nobody brings... Well, a couple people will bring the M40 ones, but this one certainly very few people bring. But yeah, it's just not worth it. Because you'd rather just have infantry, right? All it does is miss, and then it doesn't even kill anything anyway, so... none of them are particularly great. The ones that people do bring that do have a use case are the airborne forward deployed ones in the airborne divisions like 35Y, because this starts further forwards and goes at 100, and you can put some forward deployed AA with it. This goes at 90, so you can bring this one, or you can bring this because the transport comes and goes at 100. And you put one on every road, and you just shuttle down every road, and you just bam, 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 hitting all the enemy deployment. And they can't cover it with helicopters because this kills the helicopters. They can't prevent you from doing it with helicopters. So it's quite a powerful tool at the start. You could argue that you can just do the same thing with the other ones, but slower, because they start further back. But generally, it's just not really worth it. You don't get anything out of it. There's usually another better option. So they're not very good. So yeah, you get one of those, presumably, looking at that. So the Munga Führer, command vehicle in the Logi tab, so that's going to be 80 points 3 per card. The Munga M40, which is a fire support vehicle armed with the M40A1 recoilless rifle, and the reservist trait as an imp unit. Yeah, it'll be in the imp tab, so it's the same problem. They just need to buff up those cards. I think leave the airborne forward deployed ones where they are, and make the other ones have 9 availability or something. And maybe people might start bringing them then if you get a little bit more availability. A general Munga is a transport option for small weapons teams. So yeah, it's like an Iltis, but presumably slower. So here we go, the Rad Aufkpers 91. Is it 91 or Zig? One of them is like 19, and one of them is 91. Yeah, whatever. Another new unit and model we've added to this Nemesis division is the Radar Aufklärungspanzer 91-2. Sorry, I have to look this up, man. Mongoose translate. Right, so that's English, I want it in German.
91 bis 2.
91.
91.
And then 19 is... Oh, it 9's in. Okay, my bad. My bad. Somebody sent me a Discord message. I wonder what it is. So, the specific radar, battlefield radar variant of the... Another thing we can't pronounce. So it's radar variant of a recon tank. So it was in the artillery tank battalions, while all the other variants, all the while, sorry, I'm having a stroke here, too much German. Other variants of the light Schützenpanzer were taken out of service. The radar thingy was only finally retired in 1987 when the racist was introduced. We've considered that several examples would remain serviceable within our march towards scenario, with a training and military school formation being the perfect place to encounter one. Good. I think it's good that they add more units. I really hate the kind of 999. Das war ein Befehl. You know what I mean? Hence the radar thingy finding second life in the 42 squadron, whatever. So that's going to be like the... If it replaced this, then it's going to be like that, right? Except with more armor. So exceptional optics. Does it have smoke? It does have smoke. That's useful. And it's like what exactly? Like what's the armor going to be? Because if it's got a bunch of armor and exceptional optics, it's really useful because the BRM-1K on Pact is really useful. It had to get nerfed like twice because it's got 3 armor, exceptional optics, and smoke. So you put it with your tanks, and you used to get loads of them, and they used to be cheaper, and so you'd put them in front of your tanks because you got so many of them, and it could usually survive a hit from an enemy tank. And if you're paying attention, you survive any ATGM with the smoke. And you'd keep it with your tanks, so it's just kind of like extra beef, and it's giving you exceptional optics, so your tanks can actually see what's shooting at them, which is very important. Whereas the racist is useful, and it works in a similar role, it's just it dies much easier. So the enemy tank will pop this at 1 hit, because it not only has it only got 1 armor, it's also got 8 HP. But it relies on its stealth, its mediocre stealth, so we'll see how that works out. Interesting unit. The Leopard 1A6, not a new unit compared to what was already previously announced, but an update on the Leopard 1A6 prototype's authenticity. This tank was built in two different configurations, both armed with a 120mm tank gun. One variant was basically a Leopard 1A5, but with an oversized 120mm gun. The other was more elaborate, including the new gun, but also extra armor around the turret and added fuel tanks to the rear deck. We've opted to go for the second variant, making the Leopard 1A6 more distinct, and there's a missing link between the Leopard 1 and 2. This tank in Warno will feature a front armor of between 10 and 11. Well, that's a shame. For starters, why not both, right? The classic why not both. But the whole idea was that this was going to be a really interesting unit because it would be a very lightly armoured tank with a massive gun on it. To be honest, if its armour's 10 or 11, it's actually only 1 or 2 higher than the Leopard 1A5 anyway. So it is still a lightly armoured tank with a massive gun on it. So 10 or 11 is a big deal. So 10, you survive swing fires and Conquer's M's. 11, you survive Milan 2s. Milan 2s and Hellfires, and both of those, particularly the Milan 2, are incredibly common. The Milan 2 is like the most common, second most common ATGM in the game behind the Conquers, because all the pack divs apart from Poland get Conquers. So, well, I suppose the unspeakable one, yeah, it's the most popular one on NATO. Let's put it that way. So if it's 11, it survives a Milan 2, and it'll have a 120mm gun. So the 120mm gun could be 20 pen. It could be 21 pen. But yeah, if it's 11 armor with 20 pen, it is still unique in that there isn't anything like that. But it's not as glass cannony as it would have been with 9 armor. It is what it is. It would have been cool to have both, but it is what it is. The Alpha Jet A. Lastly, we've created a new subvariant, Jagdgeschwader 43. Did you know my second most popular audience is German?
Jagdgeschwader 43.
Jagdgeschwader. So it's not Schwader. I suppose that it's not got the umlaut. Jagdgeschwader 43.
Jagdgeschwader 43.
40. I did German when I was 14 to 16. I'm 29. So, I got an A star though. I got the highest grade. Yeah, this squadron was equipped with better countermeasures, which we have added to a new variant of this diminutive little plane. To 42 div. The Alpha Jet A will be featured with a variety of new payloads using the cool, extra cool squadron, better ECM. So, it's 38 CRV7s. Which one is that? Was it 188? It's an anti-tank. It's anti-tank. CRV7 rockets is the Canadian anti-tank one that can... So that's really going to be interesting in the opener. It's basically like the A10 opener, but it's an Alpha Jet. Because I don't know if you've seen this in action, but you can... If you get a recon helo up and you open with this, but usually people go for the helicopter variant, which has the same rockets. And if it's like 2 lakes duel and they're just all coming in a big long conga line down the road, just shift right click them on, and they're all dead. It's very, very funny. You can also hit the side armor of tanks on it and it'll kill them. And because this has 40% ECM, you can do that. So that'll be useful at the start. Alpha Jet AHE2 with 6 250 kilo bombs. Alpha Jet cluster with 4 264 kilo bombs. So there's still this thing where big bombs are better, small bombs are just bad. So the 250-ish ones, because the big ones they're just more than twice as good if it's got twice the payload, but it also reloads in the same time. Would be nice if they fixed that at some point. So this will have a reload of 3 minutes, and this will have a reload of 2 minutes. So that's a shame, really, because that's not really what you want. What you want in an Alpha Jet is well, Well, to be honest, it's usually a one-way trip anyway. So this is probably the gold standard of Alpha Jet. I mean, that is what it is, but I've got a game against Ben Dover where he uses these. I'm playing Do Ryan and he's playing 152E. And the idea is you send all three out. You try and snipe the AA with the last one, as we said before. But you want them reloading quick because the enemy is now going to buy AA. And you want them out again before all the AA gets there. So 2 minutes is pushing it to begin with, to be honest. But 4 minutes... But generally they're one-way trips anyway, so that doesn't matter too much. And then they talk about Warno Tropic Storm, which is the Caribbean one. And here's some Leopard 1A6s. So I've got Devblog readouts, like proper ones for all of the Caribbean divisions. They'll be in the description. And so on, and so on, and so on. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was worth your time. I appreciate it's not really what you want. What you want is for it to be out so we can play it. But it is what it is. Hope you have a lovely day.